Okay, mini cakes, lunchbox cakes, bento cakes, essentially just little cakes that fit in these takeout boxes. I've gotten lots of questions here and on social media about how I make mine. So I thought I'd compile everything into one video and share my top tips with you on making these adorable little cakes. Okay, so the first big tip I have for you is how you bake these lunchbox cakes or mini cakes. I found these silicone molds here are kind of perfect for our, lunchbox cakes. So it's like a perfect rounded shape. It bakes one layer at a time, and then you can stack them, 2 or 3 layers high. You should probably buy more than one of these at a time so you can maximize the space in your oven if you have like a bigger oven. Yeah, but the only con I can think of these is that you're kind of restricted by the shape of the mold that you have. On the other hand, if you do the half sheet pan method, which I've been showing a lot on this channel, where you just bake the cake in one single flat big layer like this and cut whatever shape you want, that's obviously an advantage because you can make different shapes of cakes. It's pretty versatile, but you do have leftover scraps. So if you like making cakesicles and cake pops and things like that, this is perfect for you. If you don't really do that sort of stuff, you might want to invest in getting a mold that just has the shape that you like. That way you can just kind of maximize your batter and not have any leftover cake. Okay, so the second tip I have for you is to try to make everything ahead of time so that you can concentrate on decorating the day that you need the cakes. Cakes can be stored in the freezer as well as most frostings. So I wish you could see behind you right now because it is full of all kinds of buttercream. But today I'm gonna be using this one, which is a unflavored Swiss meringue buttercream. It's totally frozen, and then once I thaw it, I can flavor it however I like. This is an airtight deli container, so that keeps in the freezer for at least a few months. I also have some cake here. So I pre-made this cake, sliced them up into perfect sizes for our lunchbox cakes, wrapped them tightly in plastic wrap. Oh, and I put parchment paper in between the layers, kind of like those frozen hamburgers that you would buy so that we can take them apart easily, because it's good to frost a cake while it's semi-frozen, but we'll get to that later. But all of this stuff, this keeps in the freezer as long as it's airtight for at least a few weeks, and it'll still be really tasty. So we'll go ahead and use these today. Okay, the next set of tips have to do with how we decorate such small cakes. So remember, we grabbed these from the freezer. The freezer not only helps preserve the cakes, it also helps them get really firm so that when you get to decorating, they're not gonna flop everywhere and the crumbs aren't gonna get everywhere. And here's the parchment paper that I put in between the layers. So the second tip I have is actually from you guys. You guys had a lot to say about these little cakes and a lot of good suggestions. So for the larger cakes, you can use boba straws to stabilize the layers, or you can use a skewer, and that'll help keep them still while you kind of like decorate it, and you can remove it later on. So I'm gonna turn the camera down because you guys probably wanna see the cake and not me, and I will show you how we're gonna decorate these little lunchbox cakes. Okay, so for each cake, I put down a piece of parchment paper and then some buttercream to cement that first layer. Now these rounds are funfetti cake, and I'm gonna be filling them with either lemon curd or salted caramel sauce. But I will be using the buttercream as kind of like a dam that will prevent those sauces from leaking out of the middle because they're not as stable as buttercream. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can pipe a circle along the perimeter of that first cake round, or you can do what I'm going to show you here, which is to kind of create a wall with the buttercream just using an offset spatula. Then place on your second layer of cake and proceed to do a crumb coat like you would a normal sized cake. But this is where it gets a little bit tricky because it is a much smaller cake. And so what I'm going to do is a really thin coat of frosting along the top, and like you guys suggested, place a skewer in it, and that'll stabilize the 2 layers so they don't slide everywhere and allow you to place more frosting on the side. Then once the sides are done, take the skewer out and finish off the top by pulling the frosting towards the middle. Now I let the cakes chill out in the fridge for about 20 minutes so that they were nice and firm before I did this second coat or the top coat. And for these little cakes, I find that it's easier to do a semi-naked look. For me, it was really difficult to get a thick layer of frosting turn out really straight along the sides. Because of the small size, any kind of deviation makes the cake kind of look lopsided. So I went with a semi-naked look for all these cakes. Okay, there you are. We're gonna do the heart shape, which I have right here. We're gonna do, we're gonna do heart-shaped cakes, and this is kind of what's called like a naked cake, because we're gonna leave the sides exposed and only put filling and frosting on the inside and on the top. So yeah, just want to tell you guys before we get started. So I'm gonna point you down now. Okay, so this is a really good cake if you don't want to deal with any of that crumb coating and top coating business. You basically just take 2 layers of cake and stack them with some filling. So this is great also for different shapes that might otherwise be difficult to frost really cleanly. And you're gonna need a piping bag fitted with a round tip nozzle, or you can use a like an open star, closed star tip if you want that kind of design. This is gonna be a chocolate cake. This is actually gonna be a Black Forest cake. 2 pieces of chocolate cake, a little bit of whipped cream along the perimeter, and then some canned sweet dark cherries that I've chopped into little pieces. And then we're gonna cover it with the second layer and do that piping on the top again. Okay, in this last cake, we're just gonna go straight into the container. No piping at all. We're just gonna lay layers of cake and that whipped cream inside this container and kind of close it off at the top. For this last cake, we're basically making a layer cake that fits exactly in this takeout box. You don't even have to use a piping bag if you don't want to. I just had it left over from my previous naked cake. You could just kind of dollop some frosting in there and just use a spatula. What I like to do is 1 layer of cake, then fill the sides with a little bit of your frosting or whipped cream in this case. Add your filling if you like. So again, going in with some sweet dark cherries, add a second layer of cake, and then a final top layer of your frosting that you would then smooth out.